Hi guys, I hope you're having a great October. October always makes me think of something very specific, pumpkins. Today I have a nonfiction book for you called The Pumpkin Book by Gail Gibbons. And this is a nonfiction book to teach us about true facts about pumpkins. Now, they use drawings, but they're still true facts. Let's dive in and learn about pumpkins. Pumpkins come in all shapes and sizes. Some are tall, some are short, some are round, some are a little more rectangular. Pumpkins are members of the squash family. There are many different kinds of pumpkins: small pumpkins, big pumpkins, round pumpkins, tall pumpkins. Gardeners and farmers call them pumpkin varieties. Some pumpkins have smooth skin and others have lots of bumps. So now they're showing us some different kinds of pumpkins. This one's called Dill's Atlantic Giant. That's one big pumpkin. These are called Connecticut Field pumpkins. This one's called Luminia. This one's called Red October. Can you guess why that one's called Red October? This one's because it's kind of a red. That one has bumps on it. This one's called Big Max. Small Sugar Pie. So this is the kind of pumpkin people make pumpkin pie out of. And this one was called Trick or Treat. Well, maybe you've been to a pumpkin patch where you've seen lots of different types of pumpkins. In the springtime, when the sun's rays begin to warm the soil, it's planting time. Some gardeners turn the soil to get it ready to plant a small pumpkin patch. A pumpkin patch is where pumpkins are growing. So, I've seen a pumpkin patch at when I go to the apple orchard, but I've also seen them in some people's backyards. Just a small one with less pumpkins. Some farmers use their plows to slice through and turn over the dirt. The field will eventually be a huge pumpkin patch. So this machine, this tractor, is kind of loosening up the dirt and getting it ready for them to plant the seeds of the pumpkins. Because it's hard to plant when the dirt is really rocky and hard. The soil is ready. It's time to plant the pumpkin seeds. The beginning of a pumpkin is curled up inside of each pumpkin seed. Food is stored there too. The seed has a seed coat on the outside to protect it. The bigger the seed, the bigger the variety of pumpkin that will grow. So she's holding a little packet of pumpkin seeds. They're in her hand. So the pumpkin seeds have a seed coat which goes around the pumpkin. There is the beginnings of a pumpkin right there, and food for the little seedling to use to grow. Sometimes pumpkin seeds are planted in rows. Other times they are planted in small circular areas called hills. Several shallow holes are poked into the hill, and one pumpkin seed is dropped into each hole and covered with dirt. Each hill should be about 3 to 6 feet apart to give the plants room to grow. So look, they're taking steps to plant the seeds. This time they're using a machine. She's doing it by hand. But they're digging little holes and putting a seed in each hole. They need room to grow, so you can't put them right next to each other. A pumpkin seed won't sprout until the dirt is warm and water has soaked the seed to soften its coat. Once the seed coat breaks open, a root begins to grow down into the soil. It takes in waters and minerals from the soil for food. So here we have, we've got the sun for warmth and rain for water. You can see the roots are just starting to sprout in the dirt. After about 1 week, 2 leaves appear where each pumpkin seed was planted. These smooth leaves are called seed leaves. They begin to make more food for the plant from the sunlight and air. Yeah, so plants need sunlight, water, and soil to grow. So these little seedlings are growing leaves to get some energy from the sun to start growing bigger. After a few days, small pumpkin vine leaves appear. These leaves look different. They are prickly and have rough, jagged edges. More new vine leaves grow. Stems begin to grow and twist, crawling along the ground as they become vines. So this says these are pumpkin vine leaves. They're a little different than the first leaves that come out. And this is a vine. Maybe, again, you've seen a pumpkin patch and you've seen these twisty little vines. Sometimes you have to be careful where you walk on a pumpkin patch because of all the vines, they could trip you. The vines go thicker and thicker. They grow curly tendrils that wrap themselves around other parts of the plant to help spread the vines. Gold-colored flowers begin to bloom. So those are the pumpkin plant's flowers. And we have little tendrils, which are kind of like smaller vines, and they wrap around stuff to keep it all together and give more room for more vines to grow. A pumpkin begins to grow when a grain of pollen from the stamen of a male pumpkin flower lands on the stigma of a female pumpkin flower. This is called pollination. Sometimes pollen moves from flower to flower when the wind blows. Bees and other insects help pollinate too. Pollen rubs off on their bodies as they travel from flower to flower in search of nectar. That's the reason that bees are so important, because so this is a little bee here, they can help spread pollen because the pumpkin won't grow until these are pollinated. So let's take a closer look at these flowers. This is a male flower. It has a stamen, which is like a little thing that sticks out, and there's pollen on it. This is a female flower, and it has a stigma where the pollen lands, and that's where the pumpkin is going to start to grow. The female flower has a small green ball beneath its blossom. When the flower is pollinated, a little ball begins to grow. It is a very, very small pumpkin. Over time, it becomes bigger. So this is like a very young pumpkin. So it kind of starts here. It says a very small pumpkin. You can't even hardly tell that that's a pumpkin, but as it grows, it gets more familiar to our eyes. So, it says over time it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. The pumpkin skin begins to turn from green to orange. All of the pumpkins in the pumpkin patch begin to turn orange. So maybe you've been to a pumpkin patch kind of early, maybe in September, and you saw a lot of green pumpkins. Those are pumpkins that haven't quite turned orange yet. They all start to turn orange as they get bigger. In the fall, when the vines begin to dry up and die, it's harvest time. It usually takes from about 80 to 100 days, depending on the variety, for a seed to grow into a ripened pumpkin. It's ready to pick if it feels hard on the outside and sounds hollow when it's tapped. So you can tap a pumpkin and listen to what it sounds like. It should be hollow, meaning nothing inside. And it should be completely orange. Often, shears are used to clip the pumpkins from their vines, leaving about 3 inches of a stem. The stem helps to keep the harvest pumpkin from getting moldy. So there they're using some shears to cut it. And this is probably something a farmer would do. During the fall, more and more pumpkins of many shapes and sizes appear at roadside stands and in stores. Have you guys seen pumpkins at the store? I have. I always get excited when I see them. This says for sale. They have different varieties. Fall makes people think of county fairs, or country fairs, excuse me. Sometimes awards are given to the biggest, the prettiest, or the strangest pumpkin grown. Which one is the biggest? Which one do you think is the strangest? I would guess probably this one. The biggest pumpkin ever grown was in New York State in 1996. It weighed about as much as a small car, 1,061 pounds. At fairs are a pumpkin pie tasting contest too. That might not be the biggest pumpkin anymore because this book is a little old, so maybe a bigger one has been grown. But either way, pumpkins can grow very, very large. And something people like to do with pumpkins is make pumpkin pie. Do you like pumpkin pie? I used to not, but now I do. When pilgrims came to the New World, friendly Native Americans, Indians, showed them how to plant pumpkins. Often, the Indian women were the pumpkin farmers of the tribes. The pilgrims ate pumpkins every day in different forms, such as pumpkin bread, pumpkin pie, and pumpkin seed cereal. So pumpkin was a really important crop. It helped keep people alive when there wasn't as much food growing. And thankfully, the indigenous people of America were helpful and taught people how to grow those crops. Thanksgiving reminds people of the Pilgrims' first harvest season. They wanted to give thanks for the food they would have throughout the cold winter months. They celebrated by having a Thanksgiving feast. So it looks like they have turkey, pie. What's something you like to eat on Thanksgiving? Delicious. Halloween is on October 31st. A long time ago, people believed that ghosts, witches, and goblins roamed around at night. Some people built bonfires to scare them away. Later, October 31st was called All Hallows Eve, which means Holy Evening. It was the night before a church festival called All Hallows or All Saints' Day. All Hallows Eve was shortened to Halloween. Today, Halloween is celebrated in different ways. How do you celebrate Halloween? I celebrate by dressing up, and we go to a Halloween party, and then on Halloween day, we go trick-or-treating. So here are some steps that you can follow to carve a pumpkin. I'm not going to go over them, but that is one fun thing to do with the pumpkin. Some people place a candle or light inside and light it so the pumpkin will shine in all its glory on Halloween night. Once we carve a pumpkin, we call it a jack-o'-lantern. Other people decorate pumpkins with paint, glitter, and other decorations. These pumpkins can last a long time because they haven't been carved. Sometimes if you paint a pumpkin or maybe looks like maybe they're putting on pipe cleaners, they will last longer because as soon as you cut a pumpkin, it starts to get moldy. No two pumpkins are alike. They all have their very own personalities, just like people. So it looks like we have a cat pumpkin, kind of a scarecrow pumpkin, maybe a fancy pumpkin, and a farmer pumpkin, and a ghost or angel pumpkin. It's fun to decorate pumpkins, isn't it? All lined up on Halloween night, they are a glowing sight to behold. Isn't it amazing that all this began with a few small pumpkin seeds? Glow, pumpkins, glow. Yeah. It is so fun to see all those pumpkins on Halloween night, isn't it? Jack-o'-lanterns. All right, so some people even like to eat pumpkin seeds. Have you ever had a pumpkin seed? I think they taste really good. Now you know a little bit more about how pumpkins grow. And maybe when you carve your pumpkin this year, you can think about all those seeds that come out and what can become of them. I hope you're having a great Halloween season. Love ya. Bye.